Hey, good morning. It's good to see everybody today, and I know that we're missing a lot, and I look forward to when everybody comes back from vacation, and we get to all be together and celebrate together again. But not to say that I am not glad that you are here, because I am, and I'm glad that you've taken time on your Sunday to join us and celebrate with us. And I look forward to what God is going to do today. I look forward to the songs, and we've been celebrating together. I look forward to just uniting our hearts in prayer. This morning we're going to also observe communion, and so we look forward to that as a church family. To remember and celebrate what Christ did for us on the cross, and really what that means for each of us individually, but also as a church. And I look forward to getting into God's Word, and my prayer is always that we are each different than when we came in through those doors, that we leave different. And so I look forward to what God is going to do this morning. I figured out what's wrong with this. We always put it right there on the white line, and the table isn't. Give me a second. I'm not obsessive, I'm just compulsive, so. But I couldn't figure out why this didn't feel right. Now it feels better. And we're back. So I am glad that you're here today, and I hope that you take advantage of this morning. We have the communication cards. Pastor Jared already mentioned it. But if you would fill those out, on the back of it, there's a place for those comments. You know the drill. Anything that you feel like sharing that you need to let us know as the pastors. We go over those on Monday. Whether it's prayer requests, we'll pray for them. If it's needs, we do our best to respond to them. If it's questions or comments or concerns, we want to be involved in your life and what God is doing in your heart and in your mind. And so that's really one of the best ways to communicate with us and let us know just where you're at. And so please take advantage of that. When we receive the morning's offering, you can put those in the basket. And if you're our guest today, that's all we would really ask from you, is that you would just give us a way to connect to you. We're not going to ask for your money. We just want to get to know you. And so we would love it if you would all connect with us, communicate with us through those cards. Pastor Jerry already mentioned yesterday, we had our block party. I want to say it's the 5th annual block party, but I'll be honest, I didn't start counting at the beginning, but I think it's 5. It's our 5th time that we do it, and it's fantastic. It went so well. The weather was great, but I just want to say thank you to all of you who volunteered, that you came, you gave 3.5 hours of your time. Maybe you were just in it for the suntan. That's okay. I get it. Some of you were in it for the sunburn, Dan, but I get that too, I guess. But I really appreciate all the help, and Sam Eberlin did a lot of work in getting that put together. And so when you see her, just thank her. She won't want you to, but it was such a good time, and we had over 200 people come to the block party yesterday, and which is great. We handed out 75 bags of church information. We handed out a lot of bags of candy. We gave away this, and this is the best part. I've said this every time, but I love this. We gave away almost 70 gift cards for $1,100 worth of stuff, and I think it's fantastic. I love it, and so thank you for donating so that we could do that. Thank you for giving us a chance to be generous and not ask for anything in return. And I think that sometimes people find that weird. You mean I don't have to pay anything for this? I don't have to do anything for this? You're just giving this away? Yes, because we love you. And I love it. I think that's my favorite part about the whole block party. You'd think it was the water in the dunk tank. It's not. It's hearing those names called for the gift cards. I love it. And so thank you all for, maybe that was your way of supporting, and you gave so that we could give. Thank you for doing that. It was a really fantastic day. And I look forward to next year and doing it again. So, and hopefully we can have more and more people be a part of it and be able to celebrate and enjoy it. We're back this week to, we've got just a few more weeks now in our series in Proverbs that we've been doing together as a church. Last week we had Jim and Becky's story, and that was really exciting to hear just kind of what we support and where our money has gone, in a sense, in their ministry, and just the stories of how they've seen changes in people and lives, and that's why we give. That's why we partner with missionaries, because we want to see life change. And so that was exciting to hear all what God has done through Jim and Becky. And I'm sure if they had time, there would be a long amount of stories and lists of people that they've been able to interact with. But we're back to our series in Proverbs. We've got a couple more weeks in this, and then we're going to be moving on to a new series, a new topic, new things to look at through God's Word. But we're going to be in Proverbs chapter 24 this morning. Proverbs chapter 24, and if you grab one of our Bibles from the back, in the tan Bibles, it's going to be on page 849. In the dark brown Bibles, it's on page 563. Proverbs chapter 24. So we've been studying the book of Proverbs for the summer, and we've been kind of moving through it quickly. If we took the time to do all 31 chapters, it would take us a very long time to go through the book. But we have 31 chapters here in the book of Proverbs of words to live by, verses that will help us live, if we pay attention, successful, godly lives. They'll help us navigate life's situations each day with godly life skill. And they're called the Proverbs of Solomon, who was one of the kings of Israel. But not all the Proverbs, we've talked about this, but not all the Proverbs in this book, in the book of Proverbs, were written by Solomon. He's not the author of all of them. When he was king of Israel, just to give you the context, when he was king of Israel, Solomon had a dream, and in the dream, God offered him anything that he wanted, because he was ruling God's people, Israel, and God said, look, you're the ruler, you're the king, I want to give you whatever you want that you think will help you do a better job at this. And so Solomon said to God, I just want to know how to do this well. I want to rule with wisdom. That's what I want. I want to rule with wisdom. And so God gives Solomon wisdom. And the Bible records that Solomon was the wisest man on earth because of it. Because of God's gift, he was the wisest man on earth. And what that means is that by God's gift, Solomon knew better than anyone how to live a successful, godly life. That's what that means when we say that Solomon was the wisest man on earth. He knew how to handle any situation in a godly way, better than anybody else. And he recorded some of his own insights in this book, but we also know that he collected a lot of proverbs, a lot of sayings, a lot of things to remember, and he compiled insights in Proverbs from all over, from a number of sources, and not all of them were Hebrew. But he acknowledged them as valuable. He was discerning with them and thought, this is helpful for me to live a successful, godly life. And so today's proverb, if you were to look at the beginning of in the middle of chapter 22, today's proverb falls into a section called the 30 Sayings of the Wise. These are not by Solomon. These are not his authored proverbs. These are proverbs that Solomon collected over his lifetime and said, this is valuable. This is going to help me live a successful, godly life. And he recognized them as true. And today's proverb, Proverb 24, is probably an Egyptian proverb. But under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, this proverb was included in this book in order to help us live a successful, godly life, in order to help us live with godly life skill. And so, even though it was written by an Egyptian, but collected by Solomon, we should take to heart its instruction, because God wanted us to see it. God wanted us to have this, and it should be our goal as Christians, as Christ followers, to gather as many tools and guides as we can that will help us navigate life's situations in a godly way. And so that's what we're looking at here in Proverbs chapter 24. And I just want to start off by kind of saying, just stating this truth and being honest. If we were all honest and wanted to give people a peek into our life, there are a lot of unexpected situations that we run into, that we have in life, that we are unprepared for, that we do not expect, that we didn't see coming. right? And if we were to take away just like the Sunday morning smile for a moment, there's probably some of us that would say, I'm overwhelmed right now. Like I didn't expect this, I didn't want this, or if you had caught me last week, I was in over my head last week, right? That we get into all sorts of unexpected situations. I don't know. Some of you maybe you just don't like to do this, but when you've experienced this, I'm sure. When you spend a lot of time in your house and you get really used to it, some of you can do this. You can walk through your entire house with the lights off in the pitch black, right? And find some of you can find like the cup, your favorite mug in the cupboard without the lights on because you know where it is, right? You get so used to So we moved into a new house, right? So we're in a new house, and it was just this last week, I thought, oh man, I left this downstairs. So I'm like, I'm going to try to go down. I'm not going to turn any lights on, right? This is the test of how well adjusted you are to your new house. Can you navigate in the pitch black and find what you're looking for? I found Legos on the floor. That was not expected, right? And I don't know if with little boys, right, at any given moment, you could step on a Hot Wheels car, you could step on the police, and I think the makers of Lego were like, you know what, we're going to make this the most fun and most painful thing that we can do. I don't know if you've ever stepped on a Lego, but it hurts so bad. But you think, walking through your house, you've got it in your mind, right? You know where everything is. Here's a table, here's a chair. I don't want to run into that. But there's always something unexpected. In my case, Legos, right? You cannot prepare for all of it. You can't, even no matter how comfortable you are, no matter how well you know things, something unexpected comes along. And life is a lot like that. Right? Life it will throw something our way that we don't expect. We thought we had a good system. We thought we had everything figured out, and then something jumps out at us. Something's there that we weren't ready for. The author of Ecclesiastes, it's Solomon again, but he describes it this way in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. He said, "There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. There's a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal. There's a time to tear down and a time to build. There's a time to weep and a time to laugh. There's a time to mourn and a time to dance. There's a time to scatter stones and a time to gather stones. There's a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing." I would say that, refraining from hugs is more my time than your time, but there's a time to search and a time to give up. There's a time to keep and a time to throw away. There's a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. There's a lot that happens in life, right? The good and the bad, both. And they come and they're unexpected. These situations that he describes here in Ecclesiastes, they can't be predicted. You can't predict when the time to laugh is going to be and when the time to mourn is going to be. You can't predict when you're going to celebrate a birth or experience a death. You can't predict those things. You can't predict when life will make you laugh or life will make you cry. But what you can predict is that life will be full of these situations. You can predict that you can't predict the unexpected and that it will happen, that these situations will come. And every so often, a situation will come in life that threatens to undo us. We didn't see it coming. We weren't prepared for it. And we feel overwhelmed by it. And it feels like it's going to ruin us. We can't predict or prepare for everything because life has its seasons. And following the thought in Ecclesiastes, that season could be a death. Right? It could be an uprooting. It could be an end. It could be the unraveling of something. It could be a time of deep mourning. It could be a time of letting go or removing the bad. It could be a time of just raw emotions. It could be a number of things, the unexpected situation. And we can't know, but what we do know is that occasionally in life there is a situation that cuts us deeply, that causes us to struggle significantly, a hurt, a temptation, a fear, a loss, a trial, and it threatens to undo us. Something that we feel totally unprepared for or out of our depth, treading water. And maybe you are in one of those situations, or you just came out of one of those situations, or now you're thinking, I'm going to go into one of those situations. But life is full of those unexpected, in over our head moments. And maybe that's resonating with you today. But this morning isn't about you. This morning isn't about us, because if we're Christians and we're Christ followers, we have the tools, thanks not to just the book of Proverbs, but the rest of the Bible and with our relationship with Jesus. We have the tools to navigate those situations, those unexpected situations. We have the tool, if we are a Christ follower, to navigate them in a godly way, with godly life skill. This morning isn't about you if you're a Christ follower. This morning is about someone who doesn't have those skills, who doesn't have those tools. Someone described in the very first verse of our passage this morning. Look at with me, if you will, Proverbs chapter 24, verses 10 to 12. I'm going to read verses 10 and 11 first. Proverbs 24, verse 10 says, "If you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength?" Now, this is a principle. This is a principle. He's stating it almost like it's a fact, that your strength is small if you falter in a time of trouble. So if you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength? Verse 11 says, "Rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter." So I'm not going to dive deep into the Hebrew complexities here of this first verse, verse 10. We're just going to kind of dip our head under that water for a minute and then come back up. But scholars will tell you that there's a play on words here in verse 10 that we don't really see in English. And the words here are used to describe someone who, they're used to describe someone who fails to act wisely with godliness in their decisions and their actions. This describes someone who fails to act wisely during a little difficulty because they have little wisdom. That's the word play here. That this time of trouble, it's a little bit of trouble, but they have little strength. And there's a play on words there. It's someone who's not acting wisely during little difficulty because they have little wisdom. It's a play on the word little. It's a little trouble reveals little wisdom. If you struggle with a little bit of trouble, then it reveals that you have little wisdom. But the point of this verse, verse 10, is this. It's a principle. It's that there are days of adversity. There's a time of trouble. There are days of trouble. There are moments of difficulty that require godliness to navigate. There are moments in your life, there are moments in everyone's life, there are difficulties and situations that come up. There's a time of trouble, a day of adversity, that the only way to navigate it is with godliness. The only way to do it is with godly life skill. And that there are people who lack the strength, who lack the wisdom to navigate those situations in a godly way. There are situations that require godly life skill to successfully navigate, and there are people who lack the skills to do that. They lack the godliness, the wisdom to navigate those situations, and those situations are beginning to undo their lives. There are people who falter in a time of trouble because their strength is small, because their wisdom is small, because they don't have the godly life skill to navigate that situation. And they're beginning to be undone by the situation, or a part of their life is falling apart because they don't know how to navigate the situation. They don't know how to live through it. And a part of their life is being undone. They are being led to death by the situation. They are staggering towards slaughter because of a situation in their life. Whether it's because they can't resist the situation, they don't know how, and it's pulling them in, and it's pulling them under, or maybe they can't stop themselves from taking steps closer to ruin. They're staggering towards it, and they don't know how to not go that direction. They don't have the life skill that will prevent them from staggering and moving towards death. They don't have the wisdom. They can't stop themselves. They lack the strength. They lack the ability to deal with those situations in a godly way, and it will ruin them. So this isn't about you this morning. This is about them. There are people who are staggering towards ruin, who are being drawn towards death because a situation in their life is too much for them to handle. This is about your friend. This is about your family member. This is about your coworker. This is about your neighbor. It is about the people around you who are experiencing difficult situations in life. They cannot predict them. They don't know when they're going to come, and they are unprepared for them. And they are, because of those situations, your friend, your coworker, your neighbor, your family member is slowly staggering towards ruin because they don't know how to handle the situation in a godly way. Their strength and their wisdom is not enough to deal with it. It could be a death. It could be an uprooting. It could be a loss. It could be deep mourning. It could be any number of those things. And earlier when we read Ecclesiastes, if you thought about the struggles that you had in life, if you thought about yourself when we read through that there was a time for this and a time for that, and you were thinking, man, I am in this time. I am in a time where I just need a hug. Like, that's the time where I'm at. If you thought about yourself, you are not alone. Because if you're going through a difficulty and if you go through struggles, they are too. They do too. If you've had those struggles and those difficulties, if you've had those hurts, then you can be sure that there are people around you, there are people close to you who are weathering those storms, who are falling into difficult situations and struggles. And thank God that you had the tools, that you knew how to handle it in a godly way, or you had the resources to navigate that situation. But they don't. They might not. Either because they don't know Christ, because they don't know what the Bible says, they don't know God, or they may be a Christian, but they aren't mature enough to handle the situation in a godly way. They might not be strong enough to handle that situation, or not this year. Not this year they can't do it, right? Or not this time. Not one more time I can't handle this, or not yet. They're not mature enough yet. They're not ready yet, or life has already been overwhelming, and it's someone you know, even a Christian, that's just in over their head. If you have gone through those situations, they are going through those situations. They are your friend, your coworker, your neighbor, your family member. There are people who don't have the strength and they falter in these times of trouble. We just moved in, excuse me. I've already met the neighbors on all the sides of our house, and I've talked to them, and I can already tell you it's true. The people close to you are going through something. Their life has struggles. Their life has difficulties, and they need help. Look at Proverbs chapter 24, verses 10 to 11 again. This is the principle. If you falter in a time of trouble, how small is your strength? Meaning, people falter in a time of trouble because their strength is small. You know people who are struggling, and that means their strength is small. Verse 11 then says, so rescue those being led away to death. Hold back those staggering towards slaughter. So those people that you know, their lives are messy because of situations and difficulties. And this morning, what we need to see is that if I want to live a successful, godly life, then I must go towards the mess of their lives, not run from it. If I want to live a successful, godly life, then I need to go towards the mess of the lives of people close to me, not run from their mess. Rescue those being led away. They're in trouble. They don't have the strength. Rescue them. Hold back those who are staggering towards slaughter. If I want to live a successful, godly life, then I need to go towards the mess of the lives of the people around me, not run from it. The author of our Proverbs says that you must rescue them, that you must restrain them, you must hold them back. They need your help. They need your help. You know, to go into detail of all the ways that people around us could be faltering or being led away or staggering, all the ways that lives get messy, it would take a lot of time because there is a lot of messiness in life. But suffice to say, they're victims. The people around you are victims. They're victims of their own choices. They're victims of other people's choices. They're victims of the effects of sin and its corruption. They're victims of the twists and turns of life. They are victims of weak spirituality. They are victims of spiritual ignorance. And the result, if something isn't done, could be their undoing. It could be their ruin. They are staggering towards death. towards ruin. And the wise thing to do, the godly thing to do, is to notice their life is messy and to go towards the mess and help, not run from the mess. Rescue them from their choices. Rescue them from other people's choices. Rescue them from the effects of sin, the twists in life, their spiritual immaturity or their spiritual ignorance. Rescue them from those things. Help them with the godly living that you've learned, the tools that you have at your disposal. We're told in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 3, that as Christians, we have all that we need for a godly life. We have everything that we need as Christians to live a godly life, to weather the storms that they're going through. We have everything that you need to weather those storms, to navigate those bad situations and those hard choices and the consequences. So help them, rescue them, hold them back. We can't sit back while others falter under life situations or decisions or the effects of those decisions, or most significantly, we can't sit back while they falter under spiritual immaturity or ignorance. We can't sit back and watch them. I've said this many times, and I'm more than ready to admit it, I am not a mechanic. I don't know how to fix cars, but I can change a tire. And shame on me if I see someone needing help, struggling with it, and no, I know how to change the tire and move on. We can't sit back. I'm not the best mechanic in the world, right? But if I know how to help, and if I have at least a tool at my disposal, then I can't fail to help them. I can't fail to get involved. I know good mechanics. I can stop and say, here, let me give you a number. Let me help you with this. I know how to change it. Is it the tire? I know how to do that. I'll pop the hood and stare at it. I can do that too. I know a little bit, but I'm not a mechanic. But I can help you get a hold of a mechanic. You know what I can do? And I can do this. I can help you think through the situation. I can help you problem solve. No, I'm not a mechanic, and I'm not awesome at this, but I can help. I can help you. It is biblical. It is godly for us to step into someone else's messy life. Not when they're just on the side of the road, but their messy life when they're going through something difficult. It is biblical. It is godly for us to step into their mess with godly help and wisdom, which first and foremost is truth and love. I love you. Let me give you a little bit of truth. It is biblical and godly for us to step into their mess. You don't have to be an expert mechanic to step in and say, can I help a little bit? Can I give you some help? But our tendency, especially in today's culture, is to ignore everything and everyone around us. That's our tendency, that we like to keep to ourselves. We like to ignore what's going on around us, ignore the messes around us. We tend to buy the lie that's what people actually need. They need us to just not be involved in their life. They need us to stay out of their business. They don't need us to be nosy. They need their privacy, and we think that this is helpful. Just keep to yourself. Just stay out of people's business. The less that we know, the better. Or maybe we think, maybe it's that we don't, not that we think, I need to stay out of their business, but maybe we think that their sin is going to rub off on us. I don't want to get my hands there. I don't want to get involved in that, right? Or we don't like their lifestyle, and it makes us uncomfortable, so I just don't even want to get near that. It's supremely messy in my mind, and it makes me uncomfortable, and so we avoid them. And when their life gets messy, we don't have to get messy with it. Because I just keep it to myself. I'm staying out of their business, or I don't really know them very well. I haven't been, because I'm just not a fan of how they live, and so their life is. I can tell you, their life is messy. I've heard the yelling, I've seen the difficulty. You can tell. I could tell you their life is messy, but I'm not a part of that. My hands are out of that, right? Because their life has been none of my business, I don't have anything in common with them, and whatever our excuse is, we tend to run from other people's messes. We want to stay out of it. But one thing we might say, because we're Christians, is I'm praying for you. Hey, I'm going to pray for you. I can tell you're going through a hard time. I'm praying for you. And that is at least helpful to an extent. It is helpful to say, if you follow through on it. If you actually pray for them, then yeah, that is helpful. But what we see here in Proverbs, verse 11, is it's not enough. We're told to rescue them, to help them, to hold them back. It's not enough just to say, I'm praying for them, but I'm staying out of it. If we want to live a godly life, then we must notice their mess. We must go towards their mess with godly help. It's what Jesus did, and it's what he expects of his disciples. You may be familiar with this story. This is in Luke chapter 19. So Jesus is on his way to Jericho and passing through there, and so this is the story. You've heard of Zacchaeus probably. I feel really bad for Zacchaeus. He gets a bad rap, and I'm pretty sure he hates every single time kids sing this song, right? Because he's like, wee little man. I mean, it makes him sound like he's like 4 foot tall, right? He's just, 5'6" is short, guys. And so, you might climb a tree if you're 5'6", and the people in front of you are 6'2". He's not a wee little man, he's just short. Anyway, and you notice the wee little man is nowhere in the Bible. You'll notice that too. So there was a man there by the name of Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus was a chief tax collector, and he was wealthy, and he wanted to see who Jesus was. He's heard about him. But because he was short, there it is, he could not see over the crowd, and so he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree to see him since Jesus was coming that way. And when Jesus reached the spot, he looked up and said to him, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I must stay at your house today. So he came down at once and welcomed him gladly, and all the people saw this, and they began to mutter, he's gone to be the guest of a sinner. But Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, this is when they're actually at his house and they've had dinner, look, Lord, here and now I give half of my possessions to the poor, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, I'll pay back 4 times the amount. And Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man came to seek and to save the lost. So this is a perfect example that this is what Jesus did. He didn't run from people's messy lives. He saw the mess and he walked straight towards it. He walked straight towards that tree. What a mess this guy's life was. He was a cheat. He was greedy. He was wealthier than everybody else around him because of everybody else around him, and they hated him for it. They didn't like his lifestyle. They didn't like his decisions. They didn't trust him. His community viewed him as a traitor, but instead of being disgusted by Zacchaeus, instead of just walking past the messy life and ignoring it, Jesus went straight to him and said, Zacchaeus, we need to talk. Let's get a little messy. Let's get our hands dirty. Jesus was known, you saw it in the verse, Jesus was known as a friend of tax collectors and sinners. He went to the mess of people's lives because he came to seek and save the lost. He came to get messy, because that's where his help was needed most. Mark chapter 2 summarizes that. Again, you see the criticism when the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, saw him eating with sinners and tax collectors. They asked his disciple, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? Why is he getting so involved in messy lives? And on hearing this, I love it because they probably think that Jesus wasn't listening, and his ears perk up, and he says, it's not the healthy who need a doctor. If your hands are clean, you don't need them to be washed. It's the sick. I haven't come to call the righteous, but sinners. I came to get messy, guys. I came for messy lives. You can't always do it this way, but one of my neighbors is a mechanic when I met him. And I don't know about you, but one of the first things I do when I hear that somebody says I'm a mechanic is I look at their hands. And if their hands aren't dirty, I wonder a little bit about their skill, right? Maybe they just own the mechanic shop, and that's fine. You can't always do it that way, but I know that's what I do. When I hear that someone's a mechanic, I look straight at their hands. Dirty hands tells me that guy works a lot. He gets messy with other people's cars. Are you getting messy in other people's lives? Someone who gets it, someone who's good at that, they're not afraid to get their hands dirty just a little bit. Now, if you're like me, everything inside you today is rebelling against this, is thinking, no thanks. I don't want to, I don't like telling our waitress that the order was wrong or the meat was undercooked. Like, I'd much rather be like, you know what, we'll just have sushi. This is sushi. It's salmon, but it's undercooked. We'll call it sushi. I'm fine. I'd much rather just do that than call her back and have that awkward conversation with her and say, look, this is undercooked and I'm really sorry. Like, I feel like it's my fault. Like, it's my fault that I should just like it more rare. It's my fault. I'm sorry that it's undercooked. My bad. I'll eat it. It'll be bloody. It'll drip down, but it's fine. And what I'm reading here, though, is that biblically, I'm supposed to be involved in much more potentially awkward conversations and messy situations. Yes. I don't like that. It's uncomfortable. But if I want to live a successful, godly life, I must go towards the mess of other people's lives and get my hands dirty and help them out with truth and love. And that's not what comes naturally to us. It's not what comes naturally to me. But look at the passage again, Proverbs chapter 24, verses 10 and 11, and we're going to go on to 12 now. But if you falter in a time of trouble, then your strength is small. So rescue those who falter. Rescue those who are being led away to death. Hold back those who are staggering towards slaughter. Verse 12. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Does not he who guards your life know it? Will he not repay everyone according to what they have done? So there it is. We can't run from the messes. We can't. Our excuses are lame, and they don't hold up. And even if we say we knew nothing about what was going on next door, even if I say I knew nothing about what was going on next door, God knows, and the truth is we know too. We can tell their life is messy. Their life is messy, and I know how to navigate it. God. I know what they need to know to navigate that situation in a godly way. And my excuses don't hold up. We can tell when people are broken. We can tell when their lives are messy. We can tell when things aren't as they seem, when life has dumped them on the curb. And sometimes to them, we might say, man, I had no idea you were going through that. But God knows we had a clue. We did know something's not quite right. And here is the kicker. God takes this very seriously. If we see a mess and we don't go to it with godly help, that's a big deal to Him. It's a big deal to God if we don't get involved. I want you to see how He talks to the prophet Isaiah about Israel. It's in Isaiah chapter 58. God is talking to Isaiah. He's a prophet to Israel, and God is talking to him about Israel. And so to set this up, apparently the people of Israel were upset with God because they were being very religious in their observances. They were doing all the right religious things. In this case, what we're going to look at here is fasting. They're saying, look, we're fasting and we're doing this right. We're observing this correctly, and we perform these religious rituals that say this to God. And you don't even seem to notice, God. We're doing everything right religiously, and it looks like you're ignoring us. You don't even notice what we're doing, and look at God's response to their complaint. He's like, you're fasting, but this is, and he just uses the word fasting, but he's trying to turn their attention. He says, is this not the kind of fasting I've chosen? This is what I want. This is what I want. Get this through your head. This is what I want. I want you to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke. I want you to set the oppressed free. I want you to break every yoke. Isn't this what I want? To share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter. When you see the naked, I want you to clothe them. Isn't it what I want? Not to turn away from your own flesh and blood. When you do that, then your light will break forth like the dawn, and your healing will quickly appear. Then your righteousness will go before you, and the glory of the Lord will be your rear guard. Then you will call, and the Lord will answer. You will cry for help, and then He will say, here am I. What do you want? God says to Isaiah, look, this is what I want. What I want is not really your religious observances. What I want is for you to help those who need help. I want you to get messy. Or in our words, go get your hands dirty. That's what I want. Stop running from the messy lives. He's upset with Israel because they're doing everything right religiously, except they're not messy at all. Their hands are clean. He says, stop running from the messy lives around you and go to the people who need help and help them. Rescue them. Hold them back from staggering towards ruin. That's what I want. Stop running from them. And when you do that, when you go and help them, I will be there ready to respond to you. I will reward you because of it. Verse 12, if we say we knew nothing about this, doesn't God weigh our hearts? Doesn't He perceive it? Doesn't He, the one who guard your life, know it? And won't He repay you according to what you've done? I don't need to be an expert in what the Bible says to give people the help that they need when their lives are messy. I don't need to go into their life and say, I have all the solutions. Sometimes the best thing to say is, you know what, I went through a similar situation. This is how I got through it. Can I tell you about God? Can I tell you a verse that helped me work through this? I don't have all the answers, and I'm not an expert in all of it. But I do have some thoughts because of what the Bible says. Or can I tell you what I'm learning? I don't have to be an expert mechanic to help somebody. I don't have to be an expert in the Bible to just say, this is what I'm learning. I went through this situation. Or you know what? I know someone that, man, you could talk to them because they know exactly what you're dealing with right now. But go to them and help them. Before you open your mouth, before you walk across the yard, pray about it first. God, their life is messy, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Will you help them hear love and truth? Will you help me know how to speak lovingly and truthful? Will you use what I'm going to say to help them, to not push them away, to not discourage them, but to give them just a tool that they need to navigate this time in their life? They need your help, but you can't force the door open either. And so pray before you do and say, God, I want them to hear truth. I want them to hear love. Pray for open hearts and open doors because their life is messy and you have a responsibility to help them. I know sometimes we think I can't do it, but remember Exodus chapter 4. Moses said the same thing, and he said, pardon your servant, Lord. I've never been eloquent, neither the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. The last thing I want to do is walk across that yard and talk to them because I don't know what I'm going to say. And God said, who gave you your mouth? Who makes human beings deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Isn't it me? So just go. I'll help you speak. I'll teach you what to say. But the bottom line is they need your help. Let me worry about the rest. You just go help. Go speak truth with love. I gave you your mouth. I think I can make it work. So here's what I know. Proverbs 24, 10 to 12. The people around me are going through something. I know it. The people around you are going through something too. Their lives are messy. They have loss, and they have hurt, and they have struggles. Their inner struggles come out in life decisions, and that sometimes makes us uncomfortable. It sometimes has consequences. And we must acknowledge that. We must notice that mess, and instead of running away from that mess, God expects us to go to the mess, and get our hands dirty, and help them with truth and love. And someday, when we're in over our head, and our wisdom and our strength is failing, I pray there's a Christian brother or sister that sees our mess, and instead of avoiding it, comes in and says, "You're staggering. Can I help?" They run to us with their hands stretched out and say, "I can help you with this. Let me help you." I'm going to pray, and as I pray, I'd ask the men who are going to serve us this morning in communion if they'd come forward. God, what I'm reading and learning, this is hard. It's a lot easier to ignore the messes around me, and it's a lot easier to think I don't have the answers and I don't want to be nosy. And I know there's a delicate way that we have to do that, to be involved and to help people. Will you help us handle those situations in truth and love, but be the rescue and the help that our friends, our coworkers, our neighbors, our family, that they need, whether it's to be introduced to you or be introduced to your truth or reminded of a principle that you've shared in your word. Help us to trust you that you'll take care of the rest if we just go and help. And I pray this in your name. Amen.